everybody, my name is Brittany and welcome back to my channel. So today I have an exciting video for you guys. Today's video is going to be my review of Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. So this book, I just finished it yesterday, but just before we get into that, I want to show you guys the two new book journals that my husband and I got just recently from Amazon. So this is the one that we got for him that he got. This is the Book Lovers Journal by Peter Pauper Press, and it's a really nice journal. It's got some quotes. You can see there's the table of contents. So it has a little introduction, and then it has my book log. So this is where he is able to record. So it has for the book title, the author, publisher, number of pages, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, genre or subject, how I discovered or acquired this book, when and where I read it, noteworthy experiences while reading, check out authors' other books or related books, and he can check that off if he wants to do that. And then he's able to rate things on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not great, 10 being exceptional. So quality of writing, and then there's also not applicable. So quality of writing, pace, plot development, characters, enjoyability, insightfulness, ease of reading, photos and illustrations, recommend this book and to whom. And then he's able to write a little review with his thoughts and opinions, and then give it a star rating at the bottom. And so it has a bunch of those kinds of pages. It also has, then closer to the back, it has a books I'd like to read section, where he can put in the title, titles, or journal pages of the books that he wants to read. Title and journal page. This is his table of contents for books he wants to read. So he can put the title and then the page number for this journal so he can find it easily. And then for each of the books that he wants to read, there's a place he can put the book title, author, approximate length, recommended by, if it was recommended by someone, and the genre or subject. It also has things like it has a section for his own books, so he can write about the bookstores and libraries where he gets his books, keep their contact information, books that he has borrowed, and that he needs to return. And then it also has a place for books that he has lent out to other people. And so he can write down when they took it and when they gave it back. Books that he has gifted to other people, books I've given. And then it also has a place for book group info. So if he's ever in a readathon, taking part in a readathon or a book group. The other year he tried to take part in the Owls readathon, but he just got very overwhelmed because he didn't have this essentially. So this will be great for that. He can keep a list of the books that he is reading, notes, and then it has a note section, and then it also has contact information in the back. So if he was part of like a book club or something, he could keep people's contact information. And then at the back, it also has a lists of critically acclaimed books, Pulitzer Prize winners, among the world's greatest books, fiction and nonfiction, drama and poetry, of course, And then at the back, it has a chapter which is going to be really interesting for him to fill out. It's called My Reading Life. So this is a place to know all your reading favorites, from memorable author events to the books you'd like to have if you were stranded on a desert island. So, of course, it starts out with favorite books, then it goes on to favorite authors, memorable book and author events, books that changed my life, literary places I would like to visit, childhood favorites, books I liked as a teenager, books I liked in college, favorite poets and poems, books I was supposed to read and didn't, but I still might, favorite book-related publications, shows, blogs, and websites, and then books on screen. My favorite movies adapted from books, films based on books that I'd remake, how I'd make it different, books that would make great movies, casting notes, and books I would like with me if I was stranded on a desert island. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is such a great journal for him. Part of his therapy is that he reads a lot. He's trying to increase his vocabulary because he has some issues with emotional regulation, and so the more words West readers know this, the more words you have to describe your emotions and what you're feeling, the better control, the more power you feel you have, internal power, that you can have the power and the words to name the emotion and describe it, and to be able to articulate what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. It's a very, very powerful tool. We know this. So anyway, I think this is going to be a lot of fun for him. It's going to get him reading a lot more, and I'm very excited for him. Now we're moving on to my book journal that I got. This one is the Track Books Chart Progress Read Harder, and it is a reading log by Book Riot. These are both available on Amazon, so I will link them both down below in the description, so that way you guys can order them if you would like. Now this one, this starts out with this book belongs to, and then we have this beautiful little quote in the front. It says, "A book too can be a star, explosive material, capable of stirring up fresh life endlessly, a living fire to lighten the darkness, leading out into the expanding universe." And that is said by Madeleine L'Engle. I'm probably not saying that correctly, but Madeleine L'Engle. Then there's a little note from Book Riot. I don't know how you can see that. Yeah, there's a little note from Book Riot. And then it has a challenge checklist. So I'll get to that in a minute, but it's just a list of the challenges that are kind of sprinkled throughout this book, throughout this journal. So this journal has the place for the title, author, publisher, year published, genre, subject, when I started or finished the book. It has a place for me to write my review. I can put this book in 3 words, and then it has a page for notes, quotes, and things to remember, which is going to be so helpful. And then at the bottom, it has a rating scale of A, B, C, D, and F, which is very important because I think I'm going to find that a lot easier to kind of articulate than the 5-star kind of rating system. I know the star rating system is what most people use, but I find A, B, C, D, F, like we used to get in grade school, I find that just easier to use and articulate, and I think that's what I'm going to use from here on out. So I will be using this book. So this Serpent and Dove will be the last book that I use the star rating system for. Going forward, I'm going to be using the grading system. So now we're going to get into this little announcement that I have, which is that I am going to be doing all of the challenges in this book. I have set myself a challenge to complete all of the prompts within this reading journal using fantasy books. That is my challenge, and I am so excited. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep making videos as normal, but whenever I do a review of a book that fits one of the challenge prompts, I am going to put that in the thumbnail. So I'm going to have in the thumbnail, probably at the top or something, it will say reading challenge prompt number whatever, and then it will have the thumbnail, and so you'll be able to know, look at the top of the thumbnail if you want to see. I'm also going to make a playlist on my YouTube channel for having those just those book reviews. So if you want to go through the challenge prompts with me and see the books that I read for those prompts and what I thought of them, and they will all be fantasy books. That is my rule. I'm going to I'm going to do that. And so you'll be able to click on that playlist, and that will be the playlist for those books. And what I will do is every time I do a challenge prompt video, I will also link that playlist in the description. So you'll see it in the thumbnail, and then in the description will be the playlist linked for all of the Book Riot fantasy challenge prompts. I'm gonna call them fantasy challenge prompts just because they're not fantasy, but I'm only using fantasy books to complete them. So, okay, so moving right along. So you guys already saw the review pages. It also has at the beginning of each, I don't want to say section, but there's a bunch of review pages. Like there's basically a section that's just full of review pages, but at the beginning of each of those there is a list of book recommendations. I'm not going to be reading a lot of these just simply because they're not fantasy. There's a couple maybe, but for the most part, no, they're not fantasy. There might be a couple fantasies in here. I don't know. I haven't read through them all yet. But, yeah, basically most of them are not fantasy, so I won't be reading them, but they are there. Then, and at the beginning of each section, so you see it has the challenge checklist, and then, so you can check off each challenge as you go. And so at the beginning of each section, you see it has the book recommendations, but if you flip back one page, so the beginning of each section, the very beginning of each section, there is a more detailed description of each challenge. So the challenges are, I'll just go through them very quickly through the challenge checklist. To read a book about books, a book you would normally consider a guilty pleasure, a book about a current social or political issue. That's going to be an interesting one to find in fantasy, but I know I can do it. A book that was originally published in another language, a book with an LGBTQ main character or written by an LGBTQ author, and or reread a book you read in school, an award-winning young adult book, a book by an immigrant or with a central immigration narrative. That's going to be fun to find in fantasy, but again, I know I can do it. A collection of short stories, a book about space, a book published by an independent press, and a book by an author from another continent. So I think these are going to be a lot of fun. I think they're going to expand sort of my realm of fantasy as well, and I'm so excited to read them, and I just, oh my God, I'm so excited to read these books and to use this book journal. Okay, now moving right along, we're going to get into this. Now we're getting into my review of Serpent and Dove. So if you don't want to hear about this or you don't want to be spoiled, buzz off now. Okay, let's get into it. So, Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Let's just get this out of the way. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. There's a lot of things. The characters are extremely well done. They're extremely well developed. There was definitely twists and turns that I did not see coming. However, I felt like one of the biggest twists toward the end, where we find out about the Archbishop and Morgan LeBlanc, I kind of saw that one coming. I really did. I found that kind of predictable. But other than that, I really loved all of the magic and a lot of the sassiness that Lou had, and Reed trying to deal with that. I really loved reading about that. The only criticisms I can really have are the church scene where she's sitting in church with him and going through the church service. I didn't really feel like that added a whole lot to the story. I felt like that scene could have been cut. I didn't feel like it needed to be there. I didn't feel like it added very much, to be honest. I felt like it was just kind of boring. And maybe it's because I grew up, I'm not a practicing Christian, but I did grow up in a Lutheran church. So, I kind of know a lot of that stuff. But yeah, it's not something that I really was into reading about. The other thing too is that the hardcore sex scene, I could have done without. Like, I've never been big on sex in my books. I like romance, I like a little kissing, I like, to see, just because it's an expression of love, and to see the two characters fall in love with each other, that's a beautiful thing. But I really don't need to read about, the ways in which he penetrated her. Like, I'm good. Like, keep that stuff behind your closed doors, okay? But that's just a me thing. I know other people don't mind it so much, but me, I'm just very sensitive to that kind of stuff. I really don't like sex in my books. It's just really not something that appeals to me. Personally, I find it actually takes me out of the story. It actually pulls me away from the story. Yeah. So I find I'm not as interested in the story when there's sex in the story. I find it just kind of pulls me out of the story, and I end up skipping through a lot of it until I know that the sex is done. I'll read through it the first time just because it's a part of the book, and I can't feel like I've actually read the book if I haven't read the whole thing, if I haven't read every single word in the book. I've never been a block reader, I've never been a speed reader. I've tried, but I've always found that it just takes me out of the story, and I'm not as immersed in the story. And besides, what's the point of reading if you're just gonna speed through books just to get more books read? That's not the point here. The point is to read books and really get immersed in the story and enjoy them. So, yeah. So, needless to say, didn't need the sex scene. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of the church scene either. Felt like that was kind of eh. The stuff with Celie was okay. I felt like it was a little overdone, little over dramatic. It was just a little over the top. But everything else I loved. All the characters were very fleshed out. I really liked Coco as a character and how she was done. As a character, as a side character, I really liked seeing that. I really liked Lou. I really liked just Reed and Lou and Coco and Ansel. I really liked Ansel too. He's one of my favorite characters in here. Jean-Luc, I wasn't such a huge fan of, but I don't think you're really supposed to be a huge fan of him. I really liked the way he was written, though. I think he was, you know, you're not really supposed to be a huge fan of him. He's an asshole. Let's get real. But I think he definitely, you know, he's not a very likable character. But I think he definitely had some, he was definitely written in a, he was a well-written character. Like, I liked him in the sense that he was well-written and he was very fully developed. And he had a lot of depth to him, and I could appreciate that. He felt like a very well-realized character. But he is definitely not a likable character, but he's not really intended to be anyway. So, moving right along, yeah, I think solid 4 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. There is just a forewarning in case this is something that you see that bothers you. I know it bothers me, and it's really just a petty me thing. I'm going to be completely honest. This is extremely petty, and it's just a me thing. But spelling mistakes in books with the technology that we have now, I understand that nobody's perfect and that there are going to be some spelling mistakes and things that get missed. But it just, when I see it, I have a very hard time unseeing it, if that makes sense. And so I'm not going to point it out, but just a forewarning that there are a couple of spelling mistakes in this book. So if that's something that's really going to throw you off, you might want to skip this one. But honestly, I think for everything that this book does well, there are definitely some things that could be improved. But overall, excellent read. 4 out of 5 stars. It kept me engaged throughout the whole thing. It kept me wanting to read more. When I would put this book down, I was always thinking about it and thinking about what could happen and what would happen to these characters. And when I put a book down and I find that I'm still thinking about it, even when I'm not intending to think about it, that to me says that it is a good book. That to me is something that I am invested enough in the characters to care about. So that's really great. Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was very well done. Other than those couple of things that nitpicks that I had, yeah, I think it was objectively, it was quite well done. Yeah, so that's what I have to say on that. 4 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. If you're not one for sex, though, and you're not one for reading about any kind of religious anything in your books, if religion and sex turn you off, you might want to skip this one. That's obviously not what the whole story is about, but there are definite mentions of religion, and there is a sex scene, and so fair warning. Okay, and that's all I have to say on that. I really found it fascinating how the whole idea of nature demanding balance with the magic, I found that absolutely fascinating. Well done, Ms. Mahurin. I thought that was amazing. I thought that was a great idea, and I thought it was really, really well executed, and I really, really enjoyed reading this story. Okay, that is all I have to say for this video, and I will see you guys all next time. Alright guys, bye!